Is this allowed? What the?
Nah, you can't do it.
I've gotten into Krav Maga, and it's based off of defending yourself in real-world events. I love about it the fact that I know if someone came and attacked me, that I could likely handle myself.
Hold on, how much do you weigh?
Like 100 pounds.
When you say you could handle somebody who, like, you're talking about like a woman?
I can pick up a 180-pound man and throw him on his back. Yeah. I swear to you. Take a knife from a guy, I can take a gun from a guy.
Let's try it.
I'm not.
Here's the proposal. He's giving you the best position. You have him in a rear naked choke. You have his back. You have his neck. Do you think you'll be able to escape from your chokehold?
Yeah.
Oh.
I haven't done this kind before, but I'm
Just
gonna
go ahead.
I'm gonna try to get the leverage.
Is this allowed? What the?
Nah, you can't do it. You're too little. I got it. It's over. It's over. Let it go.
No, don't kick him in the butt.
Fuck that.
What is the most petty reason you broke up with someone?
Probably because they're short. I can't do shorts. I love to wear giant heels.
And you're taller, kind of, right?
Yeah, I'm like 5'8.5". So they can't be tiny. If I wear heels and I'm towering over you, it's hard for me.
On behalf of all the tall boys out there, looking down on that dome could be a hazard for the eyes in the summertime, but that's not the only problem. But again, no thank you. Gentlemen, it's been a minute since I've said this, but all this garbage, at least for the West, popped up during the suffrage movement, which to the femme historians started in the late 18th century with the Enlightenment's emphasis on liberty, equality, and justice. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of cool things came out of the Enlightenment, but the name is all propaganda, calling the Dark Ages because religion was the dominant force, even though that was when we got the most engineering improvements like complex irrigation and all the good stuff we take for granted. And speaking of things women take for granted, rights would probably be at the top of the list. Women think they created them, and with it, there have been a few problems.
No one is angrier at a woman with standards and boundaries than a man who can't meet them.
Naturally. And from what I've heard, some of those women's standards are based in definitely an alternate reality.
I wish you guys took all the energy you spend begging women to lower their standards for you and did anything else with it.
Anything else? Really? Well, a person should always be careful what they wish for because one just might get it. And a lot of those men that one seems to be complaining about in regards to not being able to meet those very realistic standards that many women have set forth might just decide that it's best just to avoid women altogether. And then what would a lot of individuals have to make videos about?
I am not attracted to a man that is going to send me a Venmo request for half of a dinner bill.
Noted.
And on the contrary, nothing turns me on more than when the man I'm dating takes me out on a date he planned, picks up the tab as soon as the waiter drops it on the table, and then tips 20% on top of the total. That shit got me like, let's get out of here immediately. Let's get out of here before I bang your brains out in this restaurant.
Oh, huh. How very charming. Who said class doesn't exist anymore?
Why do women often say they want a man to be more in their feminine side, but you rarely hear men say they want women to be more in their masculine side?
Men on their feminine side is just sexy. I mean, when they're vulnerable and they can just be themselves and they kind of, they like to be pampered too, so.
I think that has a lot to do with toxic masculinity, which also greatly affects men. I think that when a woman sees a man who can sort of embrace that quote-unquote feminine side, I think it goes back to emotion and showing that a man really can be emotional and be vulnerable.
Example, 5,869 of women saying one thing but actually wanting the complete opposite, something that only adds to the point that women don't understand where privilege comes from. In truth, they think it just fell out of the sky. Modern women today are basically like kids who grew up in a mansion without proper guidance, walking the earth with the belief that they would be in the same place in which they started from zero. And nothing says this is a fact more than the story titled, 80% of Americans believe the U.S. Constitution grants women equal rights. They are wrong. By spoiled feminist Carlin Becchia. She writes, most people today would get in big trouble if they threw a pie in a trad wife's face, but that's how disputes were solved in the 1970s. The drama began at the Women's National Republican Club luncheon at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. Pearl necklaces and lacquered hair glinted and gleamed under the Grand Hotel's chandeliers as anti-feminist housewife Phyllis Schlafly took her seat.
Go on.
Phyllis Schlafly had made a career out of telling women to stay in their place. the kitchen. This ladies' luncheon was supposed to be a victory lap for Schlafly's campaign against the Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA. Instead, it became an unscripted, slapstick moment that the Associated Press would gleefully circulate to every newsroom in America. Enter Yippee Aaron K., part left-wing activist, part dessert prankster. Armed with an apple pie from a Greenwich Village bakery, he waited for his cue. When his friend Nancy Boardman distracted Schlafly with a feigned conversation about feminism, Kay took a pie from his briefcase and smushed it into Schlafly's face with the precision of a Marx Brothers routine. "That's for your ERA, you bitch," he quipped before bolting out the door.
Civilized, strategic.
For a moment, the room was frozen, then came the gasps, the clattering of silverware, and finally, the titters of restrained laughter from guests who secretly found it hilarious, but feared admitting as much might revoke their membership in the patriarchy. The pie, a humble concoction of apples and crust, had disrupted Schlafly's carefully curated aura of moral superiority. According to the luncheon guests, she hardly missed a beat. "Thank goodness it wasn't cherry," Schlafly reported, sniffed, dabbing her dress with a napkin. "That would have ruined my outfit." Ruined indeed.
God, you're pretentious.
Schlafly's glib response was as calculated as her campaign against the ERA. She had already painted herself as the embodiment of traditional values, apple pie included, so a little cream filling on her mouth wouldn't dent her armor. If anything, it bolstered her image as a victim of unhinged feminists. Unfortunately, her war against the ERA worked. It wasn't Schlafly who ended up with egg on her face, it was the women of America. And it's been that way for a long, long time, lady. I can already smell the direction that this is about to take, but I'd like to preemptively add, Carlin, the reason she won that battle isn't for the way she responded. The trads beat you there because you had already lost before it even started. The suffrage movement has always been unhinged. 60 years before the story that you're sharing, during the Epsom Derby, Emily Davison stepped out onto the race course at Tattenham Corner, where she attempted to grab the reins or attach a flag to the bridle of Anmer, a horse owned by King George V. Davison was struck by Anmer, which was traveling at high speed. Both she and the horse fell. The horse's jockey, Herbert Jones, was also thrown off and knocked unconscious. She suffered critical injuries, including a fractured skull. She was taken to Epsom Cottage Hospital, where she never regained consciousness and died from her injuries 4 days later, on June 8, 1913. Your legacy of feminism, Carlin, is insanity, and it always has been.
You think that height matters in a guy?
As a 6'3" woman, I would say it does. Women can't change their height either.
But you know you can change?
What?
Your weight. So step on the scale.
All right, thank you, my friend. I'm married, so I can't do that.
Nice.
When you're younger in your 20s, like, who the fuck wants to get married and settle down?
Yeah.
Some people, but not me at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to feel the thrill. I want to be getting my head bashed into the mattress. I want to be getting flipped upside down, and then I want to be getting ghosted the next day. I want to have my heart ripped out of my chest, and I want to do it all over again, and then some. And then when you get a little older, you're kind of like, I literally don't have time.
Carlin, this is why it doesn't work. You're radioactive, and there's nothing you can change about that. Anyway, she goes on with, the ERA began with great momentum. Introduced to Congress in 1972, it sailed through the House and Senate with bipartisan support. The final Senate vote, a resounding 84-8. All that remained was ratification by 3/4 of state legislators. Simple enough, right? Simple until Phyllis Schlafly began her anti-feminist campaign. Schlafly was a self-described housewife from Illinois who wielded her charm and contradictions like a weapon. She argued the ERA would obliterate traditional gender roles, forcing women to join the military draft and kiss alimony goodbye. To her, the ERA was a Trojan horse for feminist anarchy. Schlafly rallied conservative women with bake sales and slogans like "Stop taking our privileges." Apparently, her idea of privilege was being financially dependent on a husband.
Makes sense to me.
The campaign was devastatingly effective. By the 1982 decline, the ERA fell short by 3 states. Worse, 5 states, Kentucky, Tennessee, Nebraska, Idaho, and South Dakota, even resigned their ratifications. While legal experts differ on whether resigned ratifications count, one thing is clear. Schlafly's rhetoric reshaped the conversation around women's rights, leaving the ERA to gather dust. Fast forward to 2020, Granddaddy Trump is still in office and has packed the courts with conservative judges. Seeing The Handmaid's Wall, Nevada, Illinois, and Virginia finally decided to dust off their feminist bona fides and ratify the ERA. With these additions, the amendment theoretically had the required 38 states. But there is a catch, a big one. The 1982 deadline had passed decades earlier, and the Trump administration's legal team gleefully argued that the ERA was as dead as disco. To add to the drama, the archivist refused to certify the amendment, and federal courts backed the decision. She is a stickler for rules, and the rules say women are out of time. Apparently, deadlines matter when it comes to equality, but not when Congress passes budgets. ERA proponents argue that the deadline was in the amendment's preamble, not its text, and therefore shouldn't count. They also point to the 27th Amendment, which took 203 years to ratify. If James Madison's work can wait 2 centuries, why not give women the same leeway? 80% of Americans believe the Constitution guarantees gender equality. Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
Oh, here we go.
The 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection, but it's been applied inconsistently regarding gender discrimination. Without explicit constitutional backing, rights like reproductive autonomy are left to the whims of state legislators and courts. Case in point, Supreme Court's Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, Justice Alito, citing precedents from a 17th century witch hunter, argued there's no constitutional right to privacy that protects women's reproductive choices. Consequently, states with their own ERA provisions have already started using them to challenge abortion restrictions, framing them as gender discrimination. A federal ERA would strengthen such arguments nationwide. All right, Carlin. Wow, you really went deep there. But the thing is, none of this matters and none of this works, because you refuse to acknowledge how any of this stuff even happened. How you're even able to submit bills to Congress, how you're able to complain about nothing. All of this is possible because men made it possible. In fact, the very reason you can get on your little keyboard and write about things you don't understand is the product of male labor, male collaboration, and laws. You guessed it, that were made by men. And the fact of the matter is, we don't owe you jack. Some chose to give too much, and now it's a total shit show.
How important are women's rights?
So important. It's valuable today more than ever because a woman should be able to have her choice over her body.
By women's rights, you mean the right to an abortion?
The right to be able to vote, the right to be able to have an abortion.
Well, women have the right to vote.
Right.
Okay.
Well, here's the thing. You're a man. You are never going to face
Hoga? What percentage of men do you think would be inclined to SAU?
I'd probably say it's a 50-50 chance.
50?
Yeah, 50%.
You have male siblings?
Mm-hmm.
Brothers?
Yeah.
How many brothers?
I have 4 brothers.
4 brothers, so 50% of them are SAers?
No.
But you said it would, like, the risk is 50%.
That's not how statistics work.
It would actually be in this case if you say 50% of all men.
But I said I wasn't sure about that.
Hang on. But to refute the point, if you say 50% of all men would do this, then that's exactly how statistics work.
I guess I said that there's a 50-50 chance that any man would make the decision to do that.
That would be 50% of all men.
I don't think that all men are inherently people who would essay somebody, but I think that given the opportunity...
That would stand to reason if 50% wouldn't do it.
I don't have a great stance on this, if I'm
Well, the
being
idea is
honest.
just this. You're teleported against your will, and so is this random man. Could be any random man on planet Earth, or any random bear. But you're teleported into the middle of a forest. With this, you spawn right next to each other. Who do you take?
I just feel like me and the bear would be friends. Like,
Girl, it's not Yogi Bear.
Girl, that's my opinion.
Looks like you have a united front, Carlin. You guys really made the world better with what you've been provided. Anyway, what makes this incredibly ironic, sweetheart, is that you literally wrote this yourself and you missed the point entirely. You said it yourself. You couldn't band together even to make the world worse because you're women, and as women, you can't band together to do anything at all because you never had to, because you had privileges. Privileges provided to you by, wait for it, men. And yet you continue to dig in with things like this. All it would take to at least get the ball rolling is a simple phone call from President Biden to the archivist ordering her to certify the ERA, but the administration has been hesitant, fearing legal challenges. In the meantime, women are left navigating a legal landscape where their rights are treated like optional side dishes, nice to have but not guaranteed. Today, Biden announced the ERA doesn't need to be ratified. The archivist says she won't do it, and both sides are saying, okay, let's take it to court. Let's do that. I double dare Congress to say women do not have equal rights under the Constitution and incur the wrath of their wives, daughters, sisters, and any woman who doesn't want to be treated like a broodmare. Imagine a world where men were told they couldn't cross state lines without their wife's permission or if they were denied life-saving care based on their gender. Ridiculous, right? Yet this is the reality for many pregnant women in America today. One study found states with abortion restrictions have a 7% increase in total maternal mortality. The ERA isn't just symbolic, it's a line in the sand, a declaration that gender equality is non-negotiable. How many more women have to die, suffer, or fight tooth and nail for the rights that should have been guaranteed decades ago? There's no deadline for equality, but there is a ticking clock on our patience. It's time to pick up the phone, Mr. President. You still have time.
Used to make beer brewed here. It is used to make the brew beer here in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why it's called.
Oh man, sorry Carlin, you're out of time. Your feminist warrior was too busy eating ice cream on the beach, while the second in command was too busy being lit and menopausal. Don't worry, you still have... Oh wait, you don't. You lost.
Are men the biggest threat to women, or are men the biggest protectors of women?
I mean, both. Like, the women can walk down the street and be catcalled, and that's not okay, and that's very threatening. But also, like, you could have your husband who protects you and does things for you. So men could play either role. It depends how they act.
Aren't most cops and soldiers men?
I think so.
Aren't most cops and soldiers men?
Absolutely.
So then wouldn't men be the biggest protectors of women?
Very true.
Would you trust a female cop to stop a sexual assault?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then why are men expected to be protectors if women are just as capable of having that protector role?
So I keep saying this, and I think it's society, and I also think that men are taught more how to do that, and women aren't necessarily.
And if you made it to the end of this video, I want to say I appreciate you. So don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment to have a chance to be featured, and hit that sub button to approve of our message. And we now have an official second channel, Man Guide Reacts. Link is down in the description. We got fresh content, gonna be trying some new stuff over there, so subscribe to that for new content. I appreciate all the continued support, and I want to wish you all tremendous success. See ya in the next one.